The silent massacre commander Alina Vasquez stood on the bridge of the horizon, her dark eyes scanning the star-filled viewport as her ship moved through the Outer Rim territories. The Horizon was Earth's newest exploration vessel, equipped with the latest scanning technology and diplomatic facilities. Alina had been making routine visits to human colonies and allied settlements for the past 3 years. But today, something felt wrong. The bridge hummed with quiet activity as her crew worked at their stations. Lieutenant Marcus Webb monitored communications from his position near the main console, while Chief Navigator Amy Chen plotted their course toward the Catraxi homeworld. The Catraxi had been humanity's first alien allies, discovered 12 years ago when Earth's expansion reached the Vega system. These crystalline beings stood 8 feet tall and communicated through harmonic frequencies that sounded like music. Their technology focused on energy manipulation and crystal-based computing systems that had revolutionized human industry. More importantly, they had welcomed humans as equals and trading partners in a galaxy that often seemed hostile to newcomers. Alina remembered her first meeting with a Catraxi ambassador 5 years ago. The being's crystal body had glowed with soft blue light as it spoke about peace and cooperation between species. That memory made the current silence from Catraxi space even more disturbing. Marcus turned from his station with a confused expression. "Commander, I'm not picking up any signals from the Catraxi homeworld or any of their colony systems. The usual trade frequencies are completely quiet." Alina walked over to Marcus's station and studied the communication displays. For 12 years, Catraxi space had been filled with constant chatter. Their traders, colonists, and government officials maintained regular contact across 17 star systems. The sudden silence was like walking into a library where all the books had vanished. "What about their emergency beacons?" Alina asked. "Every Catraxi settlement has automatic distress systems that broadcast continuously." Amy looked up from her navigation console. "Commander, I'm showing the same thing on long-range sensors. No energy signatures from any Catraxi installations. It's like they just stopped existing." Alina felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. The Catraxi were a vibrant civilization with over 4 billion people spread across multiple worlds. They couldn't just disappear overnight without leaving some trace. "Set course for the Catraxi homeworld. Maximum speed," Alina ordered, "and send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a possible emergency situation in Allied space." The Horizon accelerated toward Catraxi territory, while Alina tried to convince herself there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe solar interference was blocking communications. Perhaps the Catraxi were conducting some kind of cultural ceremony that required communication silence. But deep in her heart, she knew something terrible had happened. 3 hours later, the Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Catraxi home system. What Alina saw through the main viewport made her blood run cold. Where the beautiful crystal cities of the Catraxi homeworld should have been glowing like jewels, she saw only a dark, lifeless planet covered in what looked like black glass. "Full sensor scan," Alina ordered, her voice barely above a whisper. The results appeared on the main screen moments later. The planet's surface temperature was over 2,000 degrees Celsius. The oceans had been boiled away. Every mountain had been melted flat. Most horrifying of all, the sensors detected traces of crystalline debris in orbit around the planet, the remains of 4 billion Catraxi, people who had been turned to vapor by unimaginable heat. Marcus was the first to break the silence. "Commander, What kind of weapon could do this to an entire planet? Before Alina could answer, Amy called out from her station. I'm detecting similar readings from the other Catraxi colonies. Every single world shows the same pattern of complete thermal destruction. Alina sank into her command chair as the full horror of what they had discovered became clear. The Catraxi civilization hadn't just been attacked, it had been completely exterminated. 4 billion beings had been killed so efficiently that their entire species had vanished in what must have been a matter of hours. Get me Earth Command immediately, Alina said. Priority Alpha, emergency communication. While Marcus established the connection, Alina tried to process what she was seeing. Who had the power to destroy entire worlds this quickly? And why would anyone target the peaceful Catraxi, who had never shown aggression toward any species? Admiral Robert Sterling appeared on the communication screen from his office at Earth Command headquarters. The 60-year-old veteran had served in Earth's space forces for 30 years and had helped establish many of humanity's alien alliances. His usually calm demeanor cracked when Alina reported her findings. Are you certain about these readings? Commander, Admiral Sterling asked. Confirmed, Admiral. The Catraxi civilization has been completely destroyed. Every planet in their territory shows signs of thermal bombardment that melted the surface. There are no survivors. Admiral Sterling was quiet for several seconds before responding. Alina, we've been trying to contact our other allies for the past 6 hours. The Vorlani and Ashkari have also gone silent. Alina felt the universe tilt around her. The Vorlani were aquatic beings who lived in underwater cities across 8 different ocean worlds. They had shared their advanced biotechnology with humanity and helped develop new medical treatments that had saved millions of human lives. The Ashkari were insectoid creatures with incredible engineering abilities, who had helped humans build better spacecraft and space stations. Admiral, how many people are we talking about? Alina asked. Conservative estimates put the total population of all 3 species at approximately 23 billion beings, Admiral Sterling replied. If they've all been killed, we're looking at the largest genocide in recorded galactic history. The bridge of the horizon fell silent except for the quiet humming of the ship's systems. Alina looked around at her crew and saw the same shock and horror on their faces that she felt in her chest. 23 billion innocent beings murdered in what appeared to be a coordinated attack across dozens of star systems. Who could have done this, Admiral? Amy asked. Admiral Sterling's expression grew even more grim. 3 hours ago, we received a communication from something called the Galactic Sovereignty Council. They claim to represent 12 ancient alien civilizations that have controlled this galaxy for over 8,000 years. Alina had never heard of any galactic council, despite humanity's 15 years of space exploration and contact with various alien species. What did they want, Admiral? They consider our alliances with younger species to be illegal under what they call Galactic Order protocols. According to their message, species like humans, Catraxi, Vorlani, and Ashkari are not permitted to form independent alliances without council approval. Marcus turned from his communication station. So they murdered 23 billion people because we didn't ask permission to be friends. Admiral Sterling nodded slowly. They sent a formal ultimatum to Earth. We have 1 standard year to dissolve all alien alliances, surrender our advanced technology, and submit to council authority. If we refuse, they promise to do to Earth what they just did to our allies. Alina stood up from her command chair and walked to the viewport, staring out at the dead, Catraxi homeworld. The thought that some ancient alien council could casually murder billions of innocent people and then threaten humanity made her angrier than she had ever been in her life. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Alina asked. "Return to Earth immediately, Commander. We're recalling every ship and every person from the outer territories. President Santos is calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council." Alina nodded. "Understood, Admiral. The Horizon will depart within the hour." As the communication ended, Alina continued staring at the ruins of what had once been a beautiful world filled with life and culture. The Catraxi had been artists as well as traders, creating crystal sculptures that sang with harmonic frequencies. They had written poetry about the stars and composed music that could make humans weep with its beauty. Now they were gone, erased as if they had never existed. "Commander," Amy said quietly, "what do you think Earth is going to do?" Alina turned back to face her crew. These people had served with her for 3 years, and she trusted them completely. Now they would all face an enemy that had just demonstrated they could destroy entire civilizations without apparent effort. "I think," Alina said slowly, "that the Galactic Council just made the biggest mistake in their 8,000-year history. They clearly don't understand what happens when you threaten humanities." Friends, as the Horizon turned toward Earth, Alina thought about the hybrid technologies that human scientists had developed using gifts from their alien allies. Catraxi crystal matrices had improved human energy systems. Volani biotechnology had revolutionized medicine and biological computing. Ashkari engineering had made human spacecraft faster and stronger than ever before. The Council had destroyed the teachers, but they had left the students alive, and those students had learned well. President Maria Santos stood at the head of the emergency conference table in the secure bunker beneath Geneva. Around her sat the most powerful people in Earth's government and military, along with the leading scientists who had worked closely with humanity's alien allies. The room had thick walls designed to protect against any form of attack, but today it felt like a fortress preparing for siege. Dr. James Harrison stood near a large display screen showing images of the destroyed alien worlds. As Earth's leading expert on alien technology, he had spent years working with Catraxi, Volani, and Ashkari scientists to integrate their knowledge with human engineering. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and his hands shook slightly as he pointed to the screen. "The destruction was precise and complete," Dr. Harrison said. "Whoever did this used thermal weapons that could heat planetary surfaces to over 2,000 degrees Celsius in a matter of hours. The energy requirements for such an attack would be enormous." Admiral Sterling activated another display showing Earth's current military capabilities. "We have 73 active warships of various classes, from patrol vessels to heavy cruisers. Our largest ship is the ESS Defiant, which carries 200 crew members and enough firepower to level a city. Against an enemy that can destroy planets, our conventional weapons are essentially useless." General Patricia Hayes commanded Earth's planetary defense forces and had overseen the construction of orbital weapon platforms around Earth and its colonies. She was a stern woman with grey hair and scars from the colony wars 20 years earlier. "Madam President, if this council can destroy 3 entire civilizations in 48 hours, our scattered defenses won't slow them down significantly." President Santos looked tired despite being only 45 years old. She had been elected on a platform of peaceful expansion and diplomatic cooperation with alien species. Now she faced an enemy that seemed to view such cooperation as a crime punishable by extinction. Dr. Harrison, President Santos, said, "What did our allies share with us over the years? Do we have any advantages the Council might not expect?" Dr. Harrison's expression brightened slightly as he moved to another display. "Actually, Madam President, we may have more advantages than they realize. Our 3 ally species shared their core technologies with us, and human engineers have found ways to combine them in ways their original creators never imagined." The screen showed technical diagrams of modified human spacecraft and weapons. Systems, Catraxi crystal technology can focus and amplify energy in incredible ways. Vorlani biotechnology allows for organic computing systems that think and adapt like living creatures. Ashkari engineering principles have taught us to build structures that are both incredibly strong and surprisingly flexible. Captain Sarah. Mitchell sat at the far end of the table, taking detailed notes on everything Dr. Harrison said. She was Earth's most experienced ship commander and had personally tested many of the hybrid technologies. Her red hair was tied back in a military bun, and her green eyes showed the kind of focus that came from years of making life or death decisions in space. "Dr. Harrison, what would happen if we combined all 3 technologies into a single weapons platform?" Captain Mitchell asked. "Theoretically, Captain, we could create ships that move like living creatures, fight with focused energy weapons, and adapt their tactics in real time based on enemy behavior. The Council has been fighting the same way for thousands of years, because no one has been strong enough to challenge them. They won't expect enemies who can change and evolve during combat." Commander Elena Vasquez had arrived at Earth just 2 hours earlier and still wore her travel uniform from the long journey back from Catraxi space. The images of those dead worlds were burned into her memory, and she could see similar pain in the faces of everyone around the table. "Madam President," Elena said, "I've seen what they did to our friends. 23 billion people were murdered because they dared to work with humans. If we surrender now, we're telling the galaxy that such genocide is acceptable." President Santos stood and walked to the window that looked out over the city of Geneva. Even though the conference room was deep underground, she could imagine people going about their daily lives, not knowing that Earth faced potential extinction. "If we fight and lose, humanity dies," President Santos said without turning round. "If we surrender, we might survive as slaves to beings who just committed the worst genocide in galactic history." She turned back to face the room. "Dr. Harrison, you have unlimited resources to develop these hybrid weapons systems. Captain Mitchell, I want every ship in our fleet modified with the new technology. Admiral Sterling, begin moving our forces to hidden positions throughout the solar system." The meeting continued for 8 more hours as they planned humanity's desperate attempt to survive against an enemy that had controlled the galaxy for millennia. As dawn broke over Geneva, President Santos made the decision that would determine Earth's fate. "We will not surrender," she announced. "The Council chose to make this personal when they murdered our friends. Now they're going to learn what happens when you threaten the human race." The fury unleashed 6 months after the discovery of the genocide. Captain David Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Retribution, watching as Earth's modified fleet emerged from their hidden positions throughout the solar system. The ship beneath his feet was no longer recognizable as the simple patrol vessel it had once been. Human engineers had transformed it into something the galaxy had never seen before. The Retribution's hull gleamed with embedded Catraxi crystals that could focus energy into devastating weapon beams. Its movements were controlled by Vorlani biotechnology that allowed the ship to flow through space like a living creature. Most importantly, Its tactical systems used Ashkari engineering principles to adapt and evolve during combat situations. David was 38 years old and had served in Earth's Space Forces for 15 years. He had been chosen to command the Retribution because of his experience with experimental technology and his ability to think quickly under pressure. More than that, he had been present during the early negotiations with the Catraxi and remembered their crystal ambassador speaking about friendship between species. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres stood beside him at the main tactical display, coordinating with the other ships in Earth's hidden fleet. She was the best strategic mind in the human navy and had spent the past 6 months helping to develop the new combat formations that would surprise their enemies. Captain, all ships are reporting ready status, Rachel said. 73 vessels have completed modifications and are standing by for your orders. David nodded as he studied the tactical display showing enemy positions. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had arrived at Earth 3 days ago with a fleet of 25 massive warships. Each council vessel was larger than any human ship and carried weapons that could destroy cities with single shots. Their flagship alone was the size of a small moon and bristled with enough firepower to crack planets. The council had expected to find a frightened human government ready to surrender after seeing what happened to their allies. Instead, they found empty orbital stations and seemingly abandoned colonies. Earth's military had vanished, leaving only civilian populations on the planet's surface. Ambassador Kelthora stood on the bridge of the Council flagship Dominance, her reptilian features showing irritation at the human deception. She was over 400 years old and had overseen the subjugation of dozens of species during her career. The scaly, green-skinned alien had expected this to be another routine enforcement action against primitive beings who had forgotten their place in the galactic hierarchy. Supreme Commander Vorthok Kelthora said to the massive insectoid being who commanded the council fleet, "The humans appear to have hidden their military forces. Our sensors show no significant concentrations of enemy ships." Vorthok's compound eyes glittered with amusement as his mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his species. Standing 12 feet tall with 6 arms and armor-like carapace, he was one of the Council's most effective military leaders. His people had conquered star systems when humans were still learning to make fire. Typical behavior of inferior species, Ambassador, Vorthok replied in his buzzing voice. They hope to avoid their fate by hiding like insects under rocks. Our deep-range scanners will locate their ships within hours. What neither Kelthora nor Vorthok realized was that human ships were not hiding in the traditional sense. Earth's engineers had used Vorlani biotechnology to create hulls that could mimic the energy signatures of asteroids and space debris. The entire human fleet was scattered throughout the solar system, invisible to Council sensors and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Asterisk, asterisk. David received the coded signal from Admiral Sterling on Earth. The time for hiding was over. President Santos had rejected the Council's final surrender demand, and now humanity would show the galaxy what happened when innocent beings were murdered. All ships, this is Captain Chen aboard the Retribution. David broadcast on the encrypted channel that connected Earth's entire fleet. The Council chose to make this personal when they killed 23 billion of our friends. Today we show them the price of genocide. Throughout the solar system, 73 human warships began powering up their hybrid weapon systems. Catraxi crystals started glowing with contained energy while Vorlani biological computers calculated optimal attack patterns. Ashkari-inspired hull modifications prepared to demonstrate maneuvers that would defy Council expectations of how spacecraft should move. The ESS Vengeance, commanded by Captain Lisa Park, was the first to engage. Her ship had been modified with the most advanced crystal weapon arrays, capable of focusing energy into beams that could slice through any known armor. As the Vengeance accelerated toward a Council destroyer, its hull rippled and flowed like liquid metal, making it impossible for enemy gunners to predict its path. "Target their primary weapon systems," Captain Park ordered. "Let's see how they handle Catraxi-enhanced firepower." The Vengeance fired its main cannon, and a beam of pure energy lanced across space to strike the Council destroyer. The enemy ship's shields, which should have been impenetrable, cracked like glass under the focused crystal energy. The destroyer's hull began melting as temperatures reached levels that no conventional weapon could achieve. Aboard the Council flagship, Vorthok watched in confusion as his destroyer was crippled by a single shot from what he had assumed was a primitive human vessel. How were they penetrating our defenses? He demanded of his tactical officer. Before anyone could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the Council fleet. Human ships were appearing from every direction, emerging from hiding places that should have been impossible to conceal entire warships. Worse, these vessels were moving in ways that defied everything the Council knew about space combat. The ESS Defiant, under Captain Maria Gonzalez, demonstrated the fluid movement capabilities that Vorlani biotechnology had made possible. Instead of following predictable flight paths, the ship flowed through space like water, curving around enemy formations and striking from unexpected angles. Council gunners found themselves unable to lock onto targets that moved like living creatures, rather than mechanical objects. "Impossible," Vorthok muttered as he watched human ships slide between his formations like schools of fish. "No species has ever developed movement systems like this." Captain David Chen brought the Retribution into the heart of the battle. His ships, Ashkari-inspired tactical systems, analyzing enemy behavior and adapting in real time. The Council had been fighting the same way for thousands of years, using overwhelming firepower and rigid formations that had crushed every opponent they had ever faced. But humans had learned from 3 different alien species and combined their technologies in ways that created entirely new capabilities. When Council ships tried to surround human vessels, the Earth ships simply flowed away like liquid and reformed in better positions. When Council weapons fired at predicted intercept points, human ships were no longer their commander. Elena Buscus piloted the ESS Horizon through the battle zone, her modified exploration vessel now equipped with weapons that would have been impossible without alien technology gifts. She thought about the Catraxi crystal cities she had seen reduced to glass and felt her anger focus into cold determination. "Target the Council ships that are firing on Earth," Elena ordered. "These monsters wanted to show us their power. Let's show them ours." The Horizon's weapons combined Catraxi energy, focusing with Vorlani, biological targeting systems, and Ashkari engineering principles. The result was a beam weapon that could track moving targets and adjust its power output based on enemy defenses. When it fired on a Council cruiser, the energy beam bent around the enemy's shields and struck the hull directly. Supreme Commander Vorthok realized that his fleet was facing something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans were not just using alien technology, they had improved upon it and combined it in ways that the original creators had never imagined. His ships, which should have been dealing with frightened primitives begging for mercy, instead faced an enemy that fought with innovation and fury. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human flagship," Vorthok ordered. "Destroy their command vessel and the rest will surrender." But the Council had no way of knowing which human ship was the flagship. Earth's fleet was coordinated through biological neural networks that connected every vessel instantly. There was no single point of failure, no critical ship whose destruction would cripple human resistance. Captain Chen watched as multiple council ships turned their massive weapons toward the Retribution, apparently believing it to be Earth's command vessel. Instead of retreating, David ordered his ship directly toward the enemy formation. All power to forward shields and crystal arrays, David commanded. Show them what happens when you underestimate human engineering. The Retribution accelerated straight into the council formation, its Vorlanian-inspired hull flowing around enemy weapons fire like water around rocks. As it passed through the center of the enemy ships, its crystal weapons fired in all directions, slicing through council hulls with surgical precision. The battle raged for 6 hours as human ships demonstrated tactical brilliance and technological superiority that shocked the council fleet. Earth's vessels worked together like a single organism, sharing information instantly and adapting their strategies faster than the ancient aliens could respond. Captain Rachel Torres coordinated the final phase of the battle from her position aboard the ESS Justice. The Council flagship Dominance was the last enemy vessel still fighting, its massive size and heavy armor allowing it to survive attacks that had destroyed smaller ships. All ships, this is Torres, Rachel broadcast. The flagship is trying to retreat. We cannot let the beings responsible for genocide escape to threaten other innocent species. Every human ship in the fleet turned toward the Dominance as it tried to flee toward the edge of the solar system. Ambassador Kelthera stood on the flagship's bridge, her reptilian features showing fear for the first time in centuries. Supreme Commander, we must escape and report to the Council, Kelthera said. These humans possess capabilities we never anticipated. Vorthok's compound eyes reflected the fires burning throughout his ship as human weapons continued to slice through his defenses. How did primitive mammals develop such advanced technology? The answer came from Captain David Chen, as his voice was broadcast on all Council communication frequencies. You murdered our friends, but you left their gifts to us. The Catraxi taught us about energy. The Vorlani showed us biological systems. The Ashkari shared their engineering knowledge. You destroyed the teachers, but the students learned well. The Dominance's shields finally collapsed under the combined fire of Earth's entire fleet. Vorthok and Kelthera had just enough time to realize that the Council had made a fatal error in judgment before their flagship was destroyed by weapons they had never imagined possible as the last Council ship exploded in the darkness of space. Captain Chen stood on his bridge and thought about the 23 billion beings who had been murdered simply for choosing friendship over isolation. The battle was won, but the larger war against those who would commit genocide was just beginning. All ships, this is Chen, David broadcast to the human fleet. Send a message to every species in the galaxy. Earth has risen to take its place among the stars. We will protect the innocent and punish those who prey upon the defenseless. Admiral Sterling appeared on the communication screen from Earth Command. Outstanding work, Captain. Intelligence reports that Council reinforcements are already mobilizing throughout the galaxy. They won't underestimate us again. David nodded as he looked out at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Then we'll be ready for them, Admiral. The Council wanted to show the galaxy what happens to species who defy them. Instead, they've shown the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity's friends. As Earth's modified fleet regrouped and prepared for the larger conflict to come, The news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy at the speed of light. Other young species who had lived in fear of the Council began to hope that tyranny could be challenged. The age of Council dominance was ending, and the age of human protection for the innocent had begun. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had ruled through fear for 8,000 years, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity, a species that turned friendship into strength, combined technologies in impossible ways, and never forgot the price of justice. They had wanted to make an example of Earth, but instead, Earth had made an example of them. Asterisk.